this is going to hit somebody. But one of the reasons people don't even realize how bad off they are physically is because you're not paying attention to how you have changed. Like, there's a woman who I interacted with who didn't realize she had gained weight, the way she had gained weight, until she did a physical activity on one of the tours we were on. That's when she actually saw herself. What's going on with me? Like, she had this epiphany of how she had changed. The fact that she didn't realize how much she had changed, I already know that things in her life are chaotic. If you don't realize that you have physically changed, things in your life, I know things are chaotic. And again, no shade. I'm using it as an example to wake us up, because we need to wake up.
Change up the things you see. Open your mind to possibilities. Find your power, passion, and your purpose. You know it's time for you to walk in greatness. Let's murder mediocrity. Slay your goals, live out your dreams. Right now. Inspiration and perspective. Open your mind to a better life. It's time to live your dream. Your purpose now. Inspiration and perspective. Let's slay your goals.
I've really been thinking about our community in regards to the level of change that has already come our way and the level of change that is coming our way. And let me kind of preface this. There was a presentation that I gave leaders. I would give to executive leaders. And in this presentation, one of the things I talk about is like what's important for leaders to understand is what era they're in. And I would talk about, the eras. And when you think about the eras, like in this presentation, I would go all the way back to the Stone Age. So we really understood, like, throughout history, we've lived in different eras. And in living in these different eras, those eras were defined by particular things, like the Stone Age. Then you kind of fast forward to, like the Metal Ages, Iron, Bronze, etc. But the reason they call those ages, like why those eras, and by the way, Stone Age, 3,000 years, like between the Bronze Age and the Iron Age, like 1,500 years, almost 5,000 years altogether. And then fast forward, then you have medieval times. And let's be clear that that's, a European context, number one, medieval times, right? Because what was going on in other parts of the world, they don't really take that into account. But, for the fact that we live in the West and almost everything that we do has been westernized, let's just kind of keep it for that, for this particular moment. All right, so you got that. And medieval times was an era because during that period of time, certain things, happened. It was defined by a particular, the timing. Medieval times, you had, lords and peasants and all types of things, during that period in Europe. Then fast forward and the world begins to speed up. Slavery takes place. Notice the world speeds up right after that. So, on the back of our people, things sped up. And we move into the industrial age. And the industrial age lasts about 150 years. And, it's very important to understand that these, like you see, like all of a sudden, these eras moving faster. And I'm going somewhere because today we're going to talk about change. And I really want us to understand, like, the context of what's happening to us right now. Because I think what happens is we get so caught up in our myopic change, that we don't see the change that's happening all around us that also defines the life that we will live. So after the medieval age comes the industrial age, and everything shifts. Schooling shifts, right? How we go to school, how we work, leadership changes. And, that's the term manager becomes a thing. Fascinating that we still call them managers today. Well, I'm not going to really get into that. But the term manager comes out. Manufacturing becomes a thing. Warehouses become a thing. And in many ways, I think a lot of folks see this as a shift into like a golden era because human beings become far more advanced. For instance, we make the transition from horse to buggy. I mean, in the last 100 years, I mean, in 1920 you had cars, but you go back, 20 or so more years, and it's like you didn't. And the fascinating thing about cars is that cars weren't invented to move folks faster. They were invented to keep the environment clean because horses made the streets so dirty, right? Because, they're animals and they walk and they leave, their feces behind, and they're like, this doesn't work. And so buggies were made to move people along without all the pollution. Funny, right? Anyway, we sped them up. Now we're like, oh, carbon, Anyway, all this change. Now, during that period, that was the industrial age. And then we moved into what was the information age, because we are clearly not, in that era. Now, let me be clear about this. When we went from the industrial age to the information age, many of the industrial things stayed. Manufacturing, well, it didn't stay in the United States. Went to China. But you get my point. They're still manufacturers. But the information age saw things change quite a bit as well when we were in it. Now, the information age, years ago, when I used to give this presentation to leaders, the calculation that we came up with based on regression analysis. And what regression analysis is when you take the trend of time, 5,000, 3,000, 1,500, 150, you start to say, okay, then what is the next era? Because we have enough data to actually say, well, the next era will last if it continues to, contract. The next era will last about 35 years is what I came up with a statistician that worked for me years ago. Okay. Now, interestingly enough, I had pegged the new era to be the era of robotics. It's before we saw the advent of artificial intelligence and how fast artificial intelligence is moving. And artificial intelligence is powering the robotics in many ways, but instead of calling it the age of robotics, I believe a more accurate terminology would be the age of artificial intelligence and robotics, right? And it is here. I think I was about 2 years. I had about 2 years off, right? Instead of 35 years, 33 years. 33 years. We are in a brand new era. Let's just sit with that. I'm not sure that many of us have fully grasped what this means. That we have entered a brand new era. And keep in mind, eras define the time that we live in. The last time I was on the air, I talked about my grandmother who grew up in the middle of the Industrial Revolution, right? Former sharecropper. She knew what it was like not to have machinery, going through a field, right? It was her and her family going through a field. So she lived through the shift of an era. And we are right at the beginning of the shift of an era that, by the way, the eras, E-R-A, so anyone who's just joining is like, what is he talking about? ERAS. The eras that we are in are going to move much faster, right? Because I actually haven't done the work to see how long this era will last, but my prediction is about 5 years. And then we'll move right into another era, which I don't know if how fast artificial intelligence is moving really fast. And so in the next 5 years, it might be the thing that is moving everything, right? And so it's scary, but let's just say, 2030 will look a lot different from 2020 and in different ways, right? Anyway, so we're in a new era. All right, Linnell, thanks for the history lesson. Where are we going with this? How long did it take you to get on the internet? How long did it take you to get an email? How long did it take you to get social media? How long did it take you to get on social media? How long did it take you to engage in social media? And some still haven't, which, you're like, wow. But some still haven't, right? Most have in some capacity. You're like, I don't do Facebook, but I do Twitter, or I don't do, whatever, or X. I'm sorry, it's X now, X.com. But where are you? And in the context of all that, how are you adapting to the change around you that is outside of you? That's one aspect of what I want to talk about today. Somebody just asked, are we moving out of the information age? We're already out. Information age is over, right? And again, remember, they're going to be remnants of it the same way the remnants of the industrial age. We still have industrial age schooling. Really, is it industrial age schooling or more medieval time school? Yeah, because we let people out of school for the summer so they can go work the fields. So it's almost medieval time education. But either way, something to think about. Either way, the information age is over. And there's still remnants. I want to be very clear. The same way there's still remnants of the industrial age, manufacturing, all those things still are going. The big difference, however, in manufacturing, I have a client who runs an automotive manufacturing facility. The humans are watching the robots. Like they're tweaking the robots that are building the cars. People don't build cars anymore. Well, people watch the robots build cars and they make sure the robots are doing it right. Right? But let's think about how many men used to work that assembly line. How many men brought home really good money, right? That took care of their families. They had the opportunity to buy homes. I mean, you go down the list. All they had to do was show up every day at the same time at a factory job and then put the door on with two bolts, boop, 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 and they go down the line to the next guy, right? And that's what they did all day. Now, there's robots that are doing all that. And so we have, like, if you're in corporate America or paying attention to large organizations and corporations, like we have moved past there's remnants of the information age, but it's, for the most part, it's over. Like we are hardcore in the age of artificial intelligence and robotics. And just because you don't see it, and by the way, you don't realize it, but just because you don't see it everywhere doesn't mean it's not. Let me tell you what I mean by it's everywhere. We just don't realize it. Like most of the surveillance cameras, AI, and robotics. I mean, these surveillance cameras automatically can zoom out, zoom in, identify things you're driving by, look in your car, see, the brand of shades you have on, all the way down to the brand of watch. You don't even know what's happening. You're just in your own little world listening to the GCI, whatever, right? WVON, maybe. Anyway, you get my point, right? It's like we don't even realize we live in this world where we're being, like artificial intelligence is constantly doing this thing. But we do. And almost everything that we consume is the result of artificial intelligence and robotics. From going to the grocery store like those boxes, the food in the boxes, all that is handled by robots. I mean, cereal box, like there's no longer a human pouring the cereal, and like all that's happening by a robot. And artificial intelligence is monitoring those robots as they go, saying, oh, this robot needs X, Y, and Z. And then there's a human behind the scenes saying, okay, we're going to take that one off, off the line in a couple of days so we can maintain it, put another one on, et cetera, right? So there's like one human being doing that where there used to be who meant 20, 30, 40, 50. I really want us to understand how important this conversation is, because here we are in the middle of all this change, and this is the external change. We haven't even got to your life. Like, this is the change that you have absolutely no control over. It is happening. It is coming. I don't care. Now, I was having a conversation with an old college friend. Reached out to me, having a conversation with him, and, it was, good conversation, catching up, etc. And at the end of the conversation, this college friend of mine asked me what I thought was a fairly simple question. Like, yeah, I'm looking to do this with my business, etc. I'm like, yeah, why didn't you ask artificial intelligence? Like, why didn't you ask ChatGPT or Copilot, one of those? Huh? Who? And I thought, wow, wait a second. Because the pace at which he is getting his information and getting problems solved for him is so much slower than mine. So much, like the amount of work that my team and I can do now in a week, it completely like trumps any work we could do 3 years ago. Just 3 years ago. The amount of work my team and I can do, right, in a day or a week, it completely, 3 years ago, there was no way we can get this amount of work done. How are we doing it? Artificial intelligence. So then I think about our community, because when you look at the science of adopting technology, they have numbers on this, right? You have the early adopters. As soon as it comes out, people jump on. Then you have the ones who kind of, and it's a curve, like for those of you on Facebook listening, I'm just kind of doing a curve, right, with my hands. There's a curve, and typically you have there's only a few early adopters and then semi-early adopters, and then everybody else follows when the trend is hit already, right? Why? Because most human beings are followers. And then you have those who are at the end who do it because they have to, right? It's like, you didn't hear about such and such? What do you mean? No, I didn't. Nobody emailed me or nobody sent it in the mail. They're like, it was on Facebook. It's like, wow, I'm missing important. Now I have to, right? They have to. And they do it begrudgingly. They have to. And so technology, and by the way, like the information age, and in some ways you could say is the beginning of the technology age, right? Where technology is the biggest thing. Now, if you're not staying in touch with technology, you're going to be so far behind. And I think about our community in particular because we are the ones that are typically left out of the gold rush. I'll give you an example. Right now, one of the things I do, because I know artificial intelligence, robotics, I knew this is the next era, so I'm signed up for almost anything. I get the articles, Wall Street Journal article, it come to me because I sign up for these type of things. And I'm reading these articles all the time. And artificial intelligence is already so incredibly intelligent that it's scaring folks. Like it's scaring a lot of people. And then there's a whole nother segment, and it's not just our community, but I'm talking to us, right? I'm talking to us because there are many of us who we have no clue. We have no clue how the era has already changed and how everything around us is going to change. And not just that, we get like somebody's overwhelmed right now about this conversation because they have so much personal change that they're trying to deal with. How in the world, Linnell, am I supposed to keep up with that when I can't keep up in my own house? And I believe that's one of the reasons why the conversation I want to have today is so important. Because you can either be victimized by it, like, oh, it's too fast, and allow it all to get away from you. Or you can decide to become responsible for the change that you are interacting with on a constant basis and decide that you are going to pace yourself with the change. And that's what I really want to inspire us to do today, to pace ourselves. It is critical. I can have all these other conversations about, oh, well, here's what you need to do around your health, your relationships, your work and money. This is that conversation, but your health and your relationships. I can have all those conversations, right, around your health and your relationships and your spirituality. But if your money ain't right, and let's be clear, the era defines the amount of money you can make. I'll give you an example. My wife and I, we just started a brand new business. I would say that 90% of the business plan and everything that we're looking to put together for the business was built by artificial intelligence. So the amount of time it took us to do research, to lay out the plan, all of that, even the financial projections were run through artificial intelligence. And then my wife ran it in artificial intelligence. She sent it to me, and I looked it over. I didn't have to rebuild it, though. You get where I'm going? I could look it over and say, I think we might be missing this or that. But even for me, the fact that she can run it through artificial intelligence and then send me the projections and I could just, spotlight, well, what about this? What about that? Is so much faster than it would have been 3 years ago. Like, we would probably still be in the business plan development stage, which means that in our household, we're building a business in a matter of a quarter, where someone else who doesn't understand this information and wants to build a business, it might take them a year. And guess what? They'll be a year too late. I really want us to understand, like, one of the things, I listen to VON and I hear different callers call in throughout the week. And one of the things, like one of the themes that I hear is, well, it's not fair. We're being left behind. What about us? And I'm saying, like, look, nobody is coming to gather us and say, hello, everyone. We want to take you through this artificial intelligence course to make sure that you're on pace with all your other peers. Nobody's going to do that. Like, if we don't begin to get very serious about the times that we live in and what's going to happen, not just to us, but our legacies, what's going to happen, not just to us, but our children, then we will get left. Like, in some cases, maybe your children know. Thank God. But in other cases, because you don't know, your children don't know, and they're being left behind. So I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it. One, how do we adapt to the change that's happening around us? You cannot be too busy. Like, listen to me. You cannot be too busy. It will cost you. It will cost you more than you can even begin to understand. I'm going to say this and then I'm going to move on to the 4 ways. I have a very unique perspective because I'm privileged to work with CEOs and C-suite leaders who are creating strategy for what's next in the Fortune 500. So often I get a vantage point through like multiple different industries, retail, insurance. Matter of fact, part of the reason I want to talk about change is I'll be speaking to a group at one of the top 10 financial institutions in North America. What do they want to talk about? Embracing uncertainty, right? They understand how fast things are moving, and they want to make sure, and by the way, this is a conversation for every level of the organization, like everybody's invited. And they want to make sure that people in their organization understand the volatility of the era. And let's say that, right? Volatility of the era. When I say volatility, like when you think about financial volatility, it means ups and downs, real fast ups and downs, right? So the volatility of the era and how they can best move within the organization in a way that supports not just them, but the organization as a whole. So the organization gets this. They're making an investment, right, to say, let's help people process change. So, by the way, when I come with this, like I think, hopefully you all don't feel like, oh, here go Linnell again. Like it's really because I'm trying to keep us caught up. I'm really trying to keep us caught up because in corporate America, they like tell us what we need to know. They don't mind being triggered because they get that this is gonna support us in maintaining our spot as a multi-billion-dollar corporation because even the giants fall. And if the giants fall, multi-billion-dollar corporations, wouldn't you be concerned about yours? Your corporation, your, $100,000 corporation. Like, and by the way, no shade. To me, that's more important, right? Your $500,000 corporation, your $1 million corporation, maybe you make $50,000 a year. Like, that's important to you. When you want to secure that, protect that. Because by the way, from what I'm seeing, it's the $50,000, $60,000, $75,000, $80,000 corporations that many of us have built. And when I say that, like your life, like you are the corporation, right? That are going bankrupt. Those are the corporations that are going out of business. And that concerns me. And more than anything, what concerns me also is, I was just looking at this this breakdown of income by ethnic group in the United States of America. You already know who's the lowest. And I believe one of the reasons we're the lowest is because we have a really hard time adapting to change. Some of it's due to trauma, some of it's due to this, but okay, it is what it is. At what point do we begin to take responsibility and say, man, if we don't move, nobody else is going to move for us? If we don't make it happen, nobody else is going to make it happen for us. And so how do I adapt to the level of change that I need? I'll share this because part of what I want to bring out is the Creator created a world in this particular reality that can only thrive via change. And if we don't get to a point where we are accepting of that, like we actually embrace it, we're in trouble. Like the Creator himself, and many of us, we call ourselves believers. We call ourselves children of God. But I also think in order to be a child of God, you have to be a child of change. Because if I'm in relationship with the Creator, He's constantly requiring that I what? That I change. That I change. And it makes me wonder how deep our relationship is. And by the way, like, I want to be very clear. Like, I'm not saying, oh, I don't care about your mental health. I'm not saying that. But it also makes me wonder how deep our relationship is if a little change impacts my mental health. Because if I have a strong relationship, and I do believe a lot of the illnesses that we're facing has a lot to do with the lack of relationship with the Creator. We're trying to do life alone. And then, like, there is no answer for the level of anxiety you feel if you're doing life alone. If you don't believe there's a God and you're like, I'm so anxious, I'll be like, well, that makes sense. That makes sense. And again, like, no shade. I want somebody saying Linnell doesn't care about mental health. I've been getting notes lately. People are like, really, you said this, that was wrong. It's like, woo, sorry. Maybe I'm not. I don't know. But again, this is not one of the four ways, but it's a given to me. Like, your relationship with the Creator has got to be intact. And I do believe that if you're getting silent, if you're meditating and praying, that you'll be led to actually learn this stuff. It'd be like, I need you to pay attention. And I believe that because that means if you're being silent, if you're meditating and praying, that your purpose is being reiterated to you. And in order for you to fulfill on your purpose, you got to be on point. You got to be on point. And so then it's like, I need you to, be on, I need you to pay attention to that. I need you to learn more about that. Right. And then you're being obedient and actually doing it. But see, in order to be obedient to that, you got to be obedient to, hey, I'm going to need you not to do that no more. Right. And it's like, okay, my bad. Forgive me. That won't happen again. And then you're already in that relationship, right? That's a relationship. That's a give and take. That's a conversation. You're already in that conversation. If you're not, I think that's how some change completely escapes us. And then we're not used to change. Change? Oh, and then we get anxious. And by the way, healthy anxiety is a lack of clarity. And typically there's so much change happening now that you're not clear on what to do, how to do it, and that's why we feel it. That's why we feel it. That's why we feel anxiety. We're getting to a point now that if you get behind, you're in trouble. If you get behind now, like, you're in big trouble. Not just you, your business, your home, your finances, like, you're in trouble. I was having a conversation with a client and in this conversation, we were talking about change. And in some ways, they were complaining about, like, the amount of change they were experiencing. Man, it's a lot of change. And I share with them, and I'm going to share with you all. What coaching does is coaching helps us accelerate change. However, it does not make change easier. It accelerates the change, but there's no formula. Like, what you're not going to hear today when I talk about the 4 ways to adopt a change is how to make change easy. Like, change is change, and change is not necessarily easy, and it's not supposed to be. The whole idea of change and transformation is that you go into the cocoon, which is uncomfortable, and you come out on the other side a butterfly. That's the idea of change, that you get better. And the only way you get better is to be uncomfortable, right? All growth comes from discomfort. So I think the other piece is we got to get out of our mind. Like, I think some of us are going for comfort. And in 2024, there is no comfort, even if you're comfortable. Because if you are excessively comfortable right now, guess what's coming next? A whole lot of discomfort. And there's nothing you can do about it. That's how fast things are changing. Like, if you're comfortable right now, change is coming for you. It's got a bullseye on your back. It's like, oh, you thought things were good. Walk in Monday, pink slip. You know, you're going like, it's coming. So what coaching actually creates more hard change. I had a brother call in. He said, man, you're hard to listen to sometimes. Because I'm like, you have to change. Right? That's a hard conversation. I get it. I'm a change agent. I never expected Inspirational Perspective to be wildly popular and viral. I get that people got to take it in doses. I just hope you're taking the right doses. What makes change bearable is that when you are creating the change you yearn for, that's why we set goals. What makes change bearable is when you're directing the change in your life. So either you direct it, either you direct change, or change directs you. I don't know about you. I would rather be directing my change. I would rather be introducing the tough change that I'm exploring in my life, because I'm clear on where I want that change to take me, rather than to live in a world of illusional comfort, and then to come to find out that I have to deal with discomfort that I did not create. Part of what we're going to do is I want to walk you through a quadrant, right? The 4 ways we adapt to change. And it's going to be 2 quadrants, right? So a 4x4, if you will. And one of the quadrants we're going to use are the 4 pillars of life: your health and well-being, your relationships, your work and money, and your purpose of spirituality. Those are the 4 pillars, okay? So the things I talk about in terms of the 4 ways to adapt to change, I need to change the title. Adopt. It's like, yeah, I make mistakes, right? It's supposed to be adapt with an A. But the 4 ways that we adapt to change, right, is like we're going to use that quadrant to dive into those 4 things. So for every one thing, we have to look at all 4 pillars. Is this making sense? Okay. So the very first piece I want to talk about is health and well-being in the context of the first way that you figure out how you adapt to change is by analyzing your self-care. See, here's the thing. Like, you cannot get through any change or discomfort unless you are clear on you. You are clear on you. You are clear on what's going on for you. You are clear on how you feel. You are clear on your health. You're clear on your mental health. You're clear on your spiritual health. You're clear on your physical health. We can't, it doesn't even make sense for me to go to 2, 3, and 4 if you are out. And I think this is where most of us, when it comes to change and our ability to adapt to change, the reason why we have a hard time is because we are out. Like, I am disconnected from me. And so how can I even understand what I'm going through when I go through change, or even aware that I'm going through change? Because I'm out. I'm out with myself. And unless I have like something to measure, right? This is why goals are so incredibly important. Unless I have something to measure, then I'm just out. Now, let me say this, you all. I got a note. Somebody was like, how dare you talk about someone who traveled with you or a client of yours, in a degrading way. That's what they told me. Because I use examples. And examples are confidential. But I use examples so we understand the reality of it. Like, I'm not pointing fingers at anybody. I want us to be very clear. I get these notes sometimes. I'm like, wow. But I also know why. It's like you're triggered because it hit you. And so that was like, I'm going to hit him back, and this is going to hit somebody. But one of the reasons people don't even realize how bad off they are physically is because you're not paying attention to how you have changed. Like, there's a woman who I interacted with who didn't realize she had gained weight, the way she had gained weight, until she did a physical activity on one of the tours we were on. That's when she actually saw herself. What's going on with me? Like, she had this epiphany of how she had changed. The fact that she didn't realize how much she had changed, I already know that things in her life are chaotic. If you don't realize that you have physically changed, things in your life, I know things are chaotic. And again, no shade. I'm using it as an example to wake us up, because we need to wake up. The way things are going in this world, the way they've laid it out, they want you to sleep. And the first thing they want you to sleep on is yourself. Because if you sleep on yourself, then I can guide you everywhere that I want you to go. Number one, prioritize your self-care in every aspect of your life, in all four pillars. First and foremost, your health and well-being. Are you healthy in the way that you intend to be? I might not even get to the other three. Like, I feel like I could stick right here and make this a series. Because how are you going to navigate change if you can't change your blood pressure? I love you. I promise I do. When I say this, I'm saying it with love. But how are you going to navigate? Well, Anil, that's not something I can control. Who lied to you and told you that? That's the system. That is what they want you to believe. And if you can't change that, how are you going to influence any other external changes that come on you? Your health and well-being, everything starts with you. How are you doing? Are you where you intend to be? Because what's coming next, like the way the world is moving, if you're not on point, you won't be able to keep up. It's already difficult for the folks who are handling themselves to keep up. I'd like to think that my self-care is in order and it's difficult to keep up. Well, I'm playing from so far behind. Look, it's always worth catching up in your health. It's always worth catching up there. That's the first change. It's always worth it there. Your health and well-being, but then prioritizing self-care in your relationships. What's going on in your relationships? Do you have relationships that you need to change? It's interesting. Today is the day of a former friend of mine's, Mrs. birthday. And it popped up on my calendar. I was like, oh man, we're not cool like that anymore. But part of the reason we're not cool like that anymore is because as I began to learn to prioritize myself, I realized that individual wasn't looking out for me. Some of us are in relationships where we can't adapt to change because we're adapting to people. We're adapting to the people. Because we care too much about what the people say. We care too much about what the people think. It's are you prioritizing self-care in your relationships? If they don't care about you, are you cutting them off? And are you keeping your eyes open in a way that you can see that they don't care about you? Because you've prioritized your self-care, they can say, well, no, you can skip that. I need you to do this for me. And you're like, but I just said I needed this. Well, I get that you need it, but I need this, right? That's how you know right there. It's whoa, wow. So you're telling me to put myself second. And by the way, I'm not talking about in a relationship where you say, well, I'm going to defer. I ain't talking about that, right? Where you say, well, baby, if that works for you, then, I'm talking about hardcore self-care. That's like me, like, I don't care if you sleep, honey. I don't care if you lost sleep. I need you to do this. Wake up and cook me breakfast. Like that's a little toxic. You get where I'm going? I don't care about how tired you might be. Prioritizing your self-care in your relationships. Here's another one. Prioritizing your self-care in your work. In your work. Some of us, the reason why you don't have time to adapt to the internal changes happening in your life is because you are consumed by your work. And your work, you set it up in a way, you taught people to relate to you in a way where you don't matter. And it's time to reteach. It's time to reteach. Self-care. Self-prioritization. And I'm not talking about in a selfish, narcissistic way, because, I want to be very clear, right? Like, oh, what is he saying here? No, I'm just talking about in a loving, kind way. Because the better off I am, the better off my family will be. Okay. So you have that. And then money. Work and money. Work and money. Work and money. Are you prioritizing self-care and how you spend your money? It's fascinating to me. Somebody will be like, oh, I really need to take that course. Or I really want this level of self-development. Or I really want a coach. I had it happen. Before. I had a gentleman I was coaching. And we were getting to that point in coaching where like things were beginning to transform. In particular, we were working on his health. I just took a moment because I care about him. I care about his family. But this is so, and I want to be clear, like I'm saying this with all the compassion I can. We were working on his health, and he understood how important his health was for his family. And then something happened with his son. His son needed a large sum of money. And he took the money he had put away to the side for coaching, and he gave it to his son. Recently, he passed from a heart attack. Are you prioritizing yourself? I'm not saying his son didn't need it, but he needed it more. Because if he was still here, he'd be able to give to his son in a completely different way. He needed it more. And sometimes we don't understand, like, well, a massage is too expensive. But then somebody call and ask you for $100, and you're like, well, I guess they need it. How are you taking care of yourself? Your purpose is part of what fulfills you. It's what makes you come alive. Are you aligned? Like when you think about self-care, that's part of self-care. Alignment. Alignment with the reason the Creator has you here. Are you aligned? Is your spiritual well-being intact? Are you so crowded that you don't have time to connect with the Creator? Self-care, prioritizing yourself and your self-care. That's number one. All right, so number two, four ways to adapt to change. First is prioritize your self-care. Second, set goals. So I was sharing this earlier, and going into 2024, I was like, all right, I need to get in post-rain, pre-rain shape, right? My daughter. Because I was like, I felt great. I mean, I felt great, right? And, she came, just a different level of, everything shifted, I remember there was a time I was doing 100 push-ups a day before she came. That's not even counting other workouts. She's just like, oh, and then it's like now that I could, like, hey, babe, can you come get the baby? I'd be on 20. I'd be like, oh, man. where are you? If you got a wife, it's like, it's not fast enough, right? I couldn't even get to 30. It's like, okay, let me get up and go get the baby. Right? So it's just like, just life. Life happening. You're like, I'm going to do it again before I go to sleep. Next thing you know, you fall asleep, the baby, just life happening. So what happens is either you progress or you digress. And in terms of my health and well-being, I noticed that there was a digression. Some of the things I had conquered began to come back. And in particular, I realized, like, man, there's an opportunity for me to really do some real looking at my health and well-being in terms of the goals that I've set for myself and where I intend to be next. Setting goals in your relationship. Like, in terms of adapting to change, part of what keeps you aligned with how change is changing you, my wife and I just had a conversation like, man, we've got to figure out how to connect in a way that before we had rain, before we had legend. Like, things are, things begin to change. And you realize, like, there's nothing wrong, right? But at the same time, the level of connection is not the same. How do we know that? Well, we set goals in terms of what we want to experience in terms of our passion, what we want to experience in terms of our communication, we set goals in our relationship. Now that I'm a father, I said in terms of my social life, like, I want my social interactions to be meaningful. I don't have a lot of time to be hanging out. So when I do, I want it to be meaningful. There's a goal around that. I'm very clear that that's what I want. Same thing in my work. The work I'm doing, I want it to be purpose aligned and meaningful. I want to make sure that the time that I'm spending away from my family is set up in a way where I'm expansively creating the revenue that will take care of us. Right? Like I'm doing, in terms of the hours away, what I'm getting back per hour is more than it was in 2022, more than it was in 2023, more than it, was, coming in 2025 and 2024. So I set a goal for that. Same thing in terms of our finances. There are more people to take care of. There's more legacy, between, what's going in the trust, what's going in the state, how are we saving, how are we handling taxes. Like, our money, there are goals. There are goals for that. And then purpose in our spirituality. And my purpose in my spirituality and my relationships, my important relationships with my family, how do I extend what I believe spiritually to my children? Especially nowadays. Especially now. I can go so many places with that. Let me say this. The school systems, they have your child for way more hours than you do. If you believe that they're going to hold your spiritual beliefs, if you can't match the amount of time you're educating them with the school system, you're in trouble. If you think they're going to hold your spiritual belief, this is why I think so many parents are a little shocked by, like, what? Oh, I can't believe little Johnny doesn't want to, worship where we worship or come to church. Or that's like, well, he wasn't indoctrinated properly. Yeah, and I said that, yes, indoctrinated properly. Because here's the thing, there's going to be some type of indoctrination happening. I just had an experience within my own family with my nieces where they were like, Unc, I expect you to be woke. You have influence. Like, the expectation was that, and it's like, I'm not woke, or I'm not supportive because I chose not to do something that I would never do. But what's happening now is, let me be very clear, right? Let me say this first. I 100% believe in honoring other people's preferences. If you prefer something and you want me to honor that, out of respect for you, I will. I believe that's what we're supposed to do. But we live in a time now where as a heterosexual man, my preferences aren't honored. And if I put my preference out there, I'm not woke. Well, I prefer not to do that. Oh, you really? What's wrong with you? It's like, well, wait a second. Didn't I accept you? Why can't you accept me? But we live in a world now where how young people are being indoctrinated is if there's not full acceptance of certain behaviors. And when I say full acceptance, I mean full, like not just, okay, you can be, but I have to participate. And if I don't participate, I'm not woke. What? And this is the indoctrination happening. I can see it in my own family with nieces and nephews in conversations, right? Where it's like, and there's like a block put up like, Unc, you tripping, Unc. And I'm like, how am I tripping? I don't get my personal preference, even if I honor yours. But it's the indoctrination happening. Now, I can't expect to rewire that because that took 12 years, 16 years of wiring. Y'all follow me? Y'all follow? And so what will happen is if I'm not intentional about the relationship, the spiritual, what's happening in my family and my relationships that matter, my children spiritually, then that same thing will enter my household. We'll be sitting around the dinner table and my son and my daughter be telling me the same thing. Oh, you ain't. We got to be careful, man. We got to be careful. We're losing what matters most to us because we're not adapting to change. Now, and here's part of adapting to change is actually knowing what's changing in the school systems that your children go to. Hey, Linnell, you live in such a great district. Like, why aren't your children in public school? Like, that's a waste of money. Nah, it ain't a waste of money. I prefer to indoctrinate my own child. I don't want the state to indoctrinate my child because the state can't even balance its own checkbook. How dare they even insinuate they can raise my child? Sometimes it's just 2 + 2, folks. Sometimes it's that simple. All right. Like, did I say something that was wrong or offensive in that? Like, because I feel like we can't even have these kind of conversations anymore. Like, people get triggered and upset and, and you should know better. And it's like, no, I get to, part of diversity, equity, and inclusion is everyone's included, even a man who has a nuclear family. like notice the exclusion? Like how weird, oh, you don't belong. It's like, oh, wow, right? I can't have my preference. I honor yours. I didn't say yours is wrong. How is mine wrong? Okay. Relationship. In the workplace, you're going to set goals. Those goals are going to be for the organization. However, have you set personal goals for what you intend to achieve in the workplace? One of the things I get all the time is, especially coming from those of us in our community, is how we're getting passed over. And I believe one of the reasons why is because we're not adapting to the change properly in the workplace. Part of that is when you think about working relationship, not even building the proper relationships in the workplace. But number one, we're not adapting to the change in the workplace. We're not lifting our head up saying, okay, here's what I need to do to get where I want to go. In the workplace, Brother Mike just said it, like they're asking leaders to take on 12 new competencies in the next, 4 to 5 years? 12 new competencies in the next 4 to 5 years. So if you're not in charge of your own personal development in the workplace, you can't be upset when you pass by, when you get pigeonholed. in the same role. Or worse, when you get laid off. I believe having very clear goals is what helps you avoid that type of thing, because when you're constantly growing, well, we can't let him go. Doing too much, too valuable. And then, of course, goals around your purpose and your spirituality. Now, number 3 is maintaining open communication. Like when you're going through change, it's another conversation my wife and I recently had, like a lot of change. And then we're like, man, we're not communicating in the way that we need to communicate. So then it's like the first thing that happens is it throws us off. Right. And there's like a disconnect. Anybody that's married gets this. There's a disconnect. And like, you know, it's easy to be on autopilot in the relationship, right? Because, you know, you wake up and it's like, man, you know, Legends lunch got to be made, blah, 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 blah. Rain's got to get changed, got to feed her. I mean, it's like boom, 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 right? And we're brushing past each other in the kitchen, out the door. What's going on with you? How you doing? You get where I'm going? There's times we're in the thick of it. I look at my wife and I go, wow, I'm with this gorgeous, beautiful woman. We're just doing life together. How amazing is this? Then it's broken with, you didn't hear me? No, I was just gazing into your eyes, baby. But open communication. Communicating with your children. Like, what's going on? Legend's going through this thing at school right now. You know, he's trying to figure out the boundary between, you know, like when there's a guy, this kid that's, you know, like pushing the envelope. And he like, Dad, y'all told me not to put my hands on people. Trying to do that. You know, so we're having these conversations, right? Communication. Like, what's going on for you? Communication. By the way, I jumped to pillar number 2, relationship. I'll go back to 1 in a second. But like communication. And it came to a point, I was like, you know, my wife sent an email. She sent 2 emails. I said, all right, look, man, it looks like now if something happens, you get to do what you need to do. Right? And they call, I'd be like, hey, we sent 2 emails. Like, hey, you know, release the beast. Like, because you're not going to get bullied. Right? But that communication that's necessary, where he's like, all right, Dad, I mean, you know, y'all told me not to be. No, we did. And you've been dodging punches and, you know, all kinds of stuff and enduring a couple of pushes. It's like, all right, well, you know, he needs to, you're not the one to mess with. He needs to know, you know, you need to know that. You know, it's, all right, I'm cool. We get the phone call, I'm cool. We've communicated. Let me say this right now, too. Like, hey, I hope the brothers, y'all get this. I think some mouths are probably open right now like, what? Hey, man, in the world, as a man, nobody can push you around. Like, my son is in man school. Like, if your mouth is open right, especially if you're a lady, you're like young, my brothers get it. Like, am I tripping? Okay. Like I was just underwhelmed by the number of hearts I got on Facebook. But that, like for real, that's a real thing. Okay. Now let's go back in terms of communication to health and well-being. First and foremost, how are you communicating with yourself? That's first. Like when I think about mental health, how do you communicate with yourself? I was talking to a client this week. One of the things that we distinguished was that the level of vicious verbal conversation that she's been having with herself is part of the overall disempowerment she's been experiencing. I mean, vicious communication. And one of the beautiful things about coaching is it comes up in the conversation. Like it happened more than one time in the conversation where it was like this viciousness towards herself. We're like, hey, what's going on? And like what I love about coaching is it creates the awareness, right? Like the awareness around, oh my goodness, that's happening. But part of what needs to shift and change is that communication with self. How are you communicating with those you need to communicate with about your health? And then when you're communicating with your doctor, how do I say this? How are you taking full responsibility for your health and not actually putting it on someone else? Well, the doctor said, so I guess I'm going to take all these what the doctor prescribed. So I'm like who else do you need to be in communication with? Like effective communication. Do you need a second opinion? I mean, we see the data on black folks and doctors. I can go through all kinds of examples and stories, like real life examples and stories that I've lived, where I've had individuals in my own family the doctor tells them something. I'm like, I asked the doctor in a situation with my brother-in-law, would you do this to your son? And the doctor legit said, well, no. Well, no. Then why are you saying we should do it over here? We better wake up. Like legit said, well, no, I wouldn't recommend that for my son. What? But you would recommend it for this black man? Again, when it comes to communication, like, you know why I was able to make that call in my family? Because the whole family was in communication about the situation. Hey, this is what the doctors are saying. We got too many secrets, man. Don't nobody know your health. Your own spouse don't know your health situation. You trying to do it all yourself. You're not going to be able to properly navigate change if you're not communicating with folks. You can't have that many secrets. If you can't call your best friend and say, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, you in trouble, and that's probably not your best friend. It's just that simple. Communicating in the workplace. I feel, because we have to do so much, I get that we're exhausted when we leave the workplace. We're exhausted sometimes before we get to the workplace. Somebody say, would you recommend a doctor? Let me tell you this, like creative conditions. I think I can't recommend a doctor for you because I'm a 47-year-old man that is in fairly good health. I would say excellent health, not fairly good. I mean, excellent health. I don't, like you have to create a doctor based on the conditions of satisfaction that you build. Like what works for you? What are your non-negotiables for a doctor? And then what are the conditional standards that you want? Male, female, all those kind of different things. It's very personal. Very personal. In the workplace, what's your communication look like with your peers, with your team, especially your leader, with your leader's leader? A few shows ago, maybe some months ago, I asked you to rate, on a scale of 1 to 10, the level of relationship and communication that you have with your leaders. You want to know why some folks are caught off guard when it comes to change in the workplace? Because you ain't been talking to nobody. Everybody knew. Everybody knew except for you. Because you come in, put your head down, do your work, get out, and then you leave the same way. Everybody knew. You didn't know. How are you communicating? How are you communicating about money? When I think about the people I'm closest to, obviously my wife, my family, my friends, my close friends, my close colleagues, like we be in money conversations. Attorney Fenton called me Friday. We're talking money conversation. I'm like, yeah, bro, I got tax issues. I need some support. I need you. We got to get this going. Tax, but money conversation. Like communicating because things are changing. Things are changing in our lives. So we're communicating about that. Number 3 is communication. Communication around your purpose. The other thing I was thinking about is, like I got a good friend who all matters, spiritual matters. I'm like, we trade texts about scriptures and stuff. And then like anything Like we have spiritual debates. And what about this? But like in the context of my spirituality, I'm in communication, like deep communication with somebody that can check me. He'll check me. He's like, Linnell, sometimes I think you put your blackness over your spirituality. I'm like, ooh, that's good. That's good, because that's not the intent. I care about us, though, right? But that's not the intent. Give me some examples, bro. He started laying them out. I'm like, ooh, okay. That's good, because I do believe that, you know, I'm just a spirit on a physical journey. And I don't ever want to get that flip-flop, right? So phenomenal accountability and conversation through communication. Here's number 4. Support. If change is hard, do you have a support system for change? So you ain't never got in shape. You ain't never really been in shape, but you're going to do it by yourself. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm just saying you increase the odds with support. Linnell, how do you stay in great shape? Accountability and support. There's a group of men, 25 men. If I don't show up, they be like, bro, where you been? Where you been? We ain't seen you. Hey, bro, you used to go up and hit the weights after you played ball. What happened? Oh, well, since my daughter was born. Remember I told you I went not in the same shape? Since my daughter was born, I got to, when you don't come back, you know what? I appreciate that. I appreciate support. Support in your relationship. People you can talk to outside of, I got the older married friends, so I could be like, hey, man, does this happen? Oh, yeah, let me tell you about it, bro. Let me. Hey, did your son do this? You give him like support, parenting support, marital support, relational support. Work. Like I teach this course in corporate America where I tell them, like, in order for you to excel, you need to have a personal board of directors that helps you direct your work. People who are like, hey, man, if I were you, I would do this, who've been where you've been, who've been where you want to go. I'm sorry. Like, do you have that level of support? Do you have that network? It's the power of coaching, in my opinion. Like, having a coach for over a decade, like, I've seen my life accelerate in ways. Support. I have a support network. Financial conversations, financial support. From a tax advisor to a financial advisor. I mean, all of you, like, support. Spiritual support. Support in living out your purpose. Those are the 4. Prioritize self-care, number 1. Set realistic goals, number 2. Open communication, number 3. I know, brothers, that's a tough one sometimes. Got to let it out. And I'm talking to myself, too. And number 4, building a support network, building a team. Building a team. The last thing that you want to do, let's say this is the bonus, number 5. You need to we got to change our relationship to change. I want you to imagine with me a world where you knew everything that was going to happen before it happened. Would you enjoy that world? Everything, the surprises, even your own death. Like you knew. There's no uncertainty whatsoever. There's no change. Like everything, you see it coming as it comes. Would you enjoy that really? Now, you could fool yourself and say yes, but part of the excitement of life, part of being fully alive is not knowing. My wife turns 40 this year. We're planning a vacation to celebrate that. Like what makes it exciting is the uncertainty of what we're going to run into. The uncertainty of what we're going to experience together. That's what makes it exciting. What if we both knew already? Like all this, like it's not. I mean, it doesn't make sense to go. It doesn't make sense to have the experience. So the last thing I can leave with you before we close out today is embrace uncertainty. Embrace change. It's part of what makes life sweet. And many of the changes we believe happen to be negative are nothing more than the tornadoes that had to clear the path so that what we wanted could grow. I love you. Thank you for watching Inspirational Perspective. If you love this show and you want to see more content like this, you can go right here. And if you like this subject and you want to see much more content that we have available for you, just click the button here. As always, thanks for watching. Be sure to watch the show live, 7 a.m. every Sunday morning on WBON Radio, or you can catch it right here on YouTube or Facebook.com/Coach Linnell Harris. Be sure to hit that like button. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe so we can get more content just like this to you.